Around the world, sport is the most popular activity for individuals to take part in. And the question is why? Well, we know that sport is a highly emotional, highly emotive environment. There are successes and failures to be experienced and to be witnessed. Whether you're a grassroots performer or a young child just learning a skill, we know that it gives you an opportunity for self-expression, to identify and to really develop a sense of belonging. You see the highs and the lows, you experience them yourselves, you witness other people succeeding and failing, and the emotion is raw for everyone to see. So why do we keep doing it? Why do we go out in the rain, on the muddy pitch, weekend after weekend? Why do we challenge ourselves to work harder, to go further, to go faster? And when you're an elite athlete, all of that happens in front of millions of individuals.
So Swansea has got an incredible sporting history. I think from the 1900s with the Industrial Revolution, as we know. Cricket obviously was massive down at St Helens. The first professional team in Wales was Glamorgan in 1921. And I think rugby and football were slightly different in terms of football tended to be directly from the working class young people at the time, whereas the rugby players often came from mining and farming backgrounds, for example, and the relative place really, St Helens being down on the way to Mumbles versus the Vetchfield being right in the heart of the industrial area of Swansea and where people lived. When the university came along, obviously in 1920, it brought other sports like hockey, athletics, swimming, for example. So there's an enormous variety of sports really that have come out of Swansea, and I think they can all be traced back to the working class roots of the town, because ultimately people want to try and escape and do well for themselves, and sport gives so many young people that opportunity. There are lots of streets in Swansea where you could be literally anywhere within the town. Terrace roads, terrace houses. There's one street though that is really special, and it's almost like a hidden story, and it's the street we're coming out onto now, which is Alice Street here in Cwmdu. And there's a football story from this street that over 50 or 60 years later, it still beggars belief that it actually happened. Most streets in the UK would be proud just to claim one professional footballer to have come from their street. Alice Street in Swansea in Cwmdu can claim 6. It started with Jackie Roberts, just before World War II when he played for Bolton Wanderers and finished his career at Swansea after the war, winning 1 Wales cap. Alongside him came Ernie Jones. He would end up with 4 caps, playing professionally for Swansea Town, for Tottenham Hotspur, Southampton and Bristol City. Then came the biggest name of all, John Charles, a legend at Leeds United, a legend in Italy with Juventus. 38 caps for Wales, 15 goals. John's best friend, Glyn Davis, played for Derby County for 12 years, over 150 appearances, ended up as the manager of Swansea Town in 1965. Then John's younger brother Mel, holder of the British transfer record when Swansea Town sold him to Arsenal. 31 games for Wales, 6 goals, an incredible career. And finally we had Mel Nurse, the man that would become known as Mr Swansea for the way he helped save the club in the 2000s. 12 games for Wales, over 300 appearances for Swansea Town. An incredible achievement, and when you think that those 6 footballers delivered over 2,000 league appearances, over 80 caps for Wales, and to think it just happened in a simple Swansea street like this is quite remarkable.
So this is the site of the skate park redevelopment in Swansea. It's an area called Llynderw, which is in between West Cross and Blackpill on Swansea Bay seafront. The site's been a site with a skate ramp or facilities here for 22 years. And for the last 5 or 6 years, we've been working hard to try and get redevelopment, to get a more up-to-date concrete park that's more purposeful now in terms of what people want to skate and ride. We had some local councillors who went out to local schools, and almost unanimously the kids said they want a skate park. The two councillors, Sarah and Pam, didn't really know anything about skate parks, but they got in touch with some of the local guys. They read up, they did their research and really bought into the project and started driving that forward. Totally accept all the way along, not everyone wants a skate park. Like, not everyone wants a football pitch, not everyone wants a bowls green. But there's a large section of the community that does want a skate park. And at the moment, before this, that really wasn't catered for in the modern sense in Swansea. So Swansea was behind the curve. The way the broader community rallied around the skate park development, this redevelopment itself, was breathtaking. Before the kind of issues really hit the press nationally and internationally, we had an online petition of 4,500 in support of this redevelopment. Within a week of it hitting press, that went up to 23,500. And just to put it in further context, there was an online petition against the skate park, which had 11 signatories. So a very vocal minority. But again, it really emphasised what the skate park will bring, not just in terms of skateboarding, BMX, whatever it may be, but for the broader community. You can't just provide traditional pastimes because times have changed and councils need to move with the times. And thankfully, we've had that support from Mumbles and Swansea, and we're getting there.
As human beings, one of the jobs that we have as we develop is to establish our identity. When we're young, we're often kind of given an identity by those around us. But as we move through adolescence, we start to really try and work out, who am I? And that's where you start to see maybe people pushing against the boundaries that were imposed when they were younger. But this process of identity development is really important to allow us to, work out who we are. And sport can play an important role in that.
I wasn't an overly athletic child, but I would play football and rugby in school and cricket and all the normal things. But when I discovered skateboarding, all that kind of disappeared into the ether. I absolutely say it changed my life. It was skateboarders building stuff for themselves, very DIY, and managing it themselves. And that was a breath of fresh air. To learn, you've got to take your time, you've got to find your balance, you've got to be brave, you've got to learn to push yourself, and you've got to accept that you will fall down, you will hurt yourself, and hopefully it won't be too bad. People see in the community that when individuals are pushing themselves, they applaud that. You don't have to be doing the biggest, best tricks. If you're pushing yourself and you're in it, you will get that support. So I think that people talk about the culture, skate culture, and I think that there is definitely a unique culture there. And certainly when I started, it was very much a subculture in itself. It introduced me to lots of other subcultures, kind of music, art, DIY-driven stuff, etc. There's always been a perception that it's maybe rowdy, troublemakers, it's loud, it's aggressive, and that's part of the sport. Nowadays, I think people will think that it's connected with, it encourages kids to go out and they're not being supervised. It has got that organic nature, so they can dip into other subcultures or other experiences as well, maybe drinking, drug taking, smoking, but that's endemic within society. You look at, rugby, for example, hugely established sport, especially in Wales, always associated with drinking. But hopefully, if they're doing something like skateboarding or they're passionate about rugby or whatever it is, then they might see that actually it's taken them away from their passion. So maybe they'll dabble and then they'll have that experience and move on. I'm very passionate about the fact that I can see what skateboarding did for me, being part of that kind of community, being part of that culture, what it's meant to me through my life and continues to mean to me. And I want other people to have the ability to see if that's their passion and reap the same kind of rewards that I have.
Yeah, my name's James Jones, I'm 28 years old and I'm a professional freestyle BMX rider. Where I'm from, Sandfields in Swansea, little council estate, little cul-de-sac. Mother was a single parent of 6, busy house. BMX started realistically from football. I used to kick a ball around the streets, etc. Lucky enough, across the road was a council park called Victoria Park. And it was just a field. Used to have goals now and then, but kept getting robbed or burnt down or whatever. But yeah, started riding a bike over just to, because I was too lazy to walk. So I took my boots and my footballs. And then a skate park appeared and gradually started after the football, just messing about on the ramps, etc. And as time prolonged, I stopped sort of taking the football boots and the balls and just taking the bike. I've taken many professional riders that have come to stay with me, take them there and they've always gone, what, how? Like, how would you, like you just said, how would you get to the level you're at just riding a metal half pipe and there's nothing there? But I made do with what I had. I was never a kid that had everything. I used to have hand-me-down parts from mates, because we couldn't afford it. So I made do with what I had.
Sport is a great avenue through which an individual can start to learn about themselves and to express themselves. When we think about self-expression, what we're really talking about is the opportunity for people to share parts of themselves through their actions, their words and their behaviours. And by participating in sport, young people, adults, older adults really have a chance to say, this is who I am and this is what I would like to do.
Obviously, when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I didn't know what it was because ultimately it's classed as disability. At the time it was, I got bullied for it, whatnot, but the plus side, I had all that energy because I was always moving and on a bike I would just keep going and going and going and going. So for me, it's all right. Like a lot of BMXers have ADHD and that's, I guess, so a lot of people try to get them on the exercise of bikes, etc. at a young age. But no, I don't treat it as a curse whatsoever. I think it's a blessing and it is what it is, and I think people shouldn't feel that it's a bad thing to have. Yeah, like I live with it, but at the same time, the focus that I have on a bike is next to nothing. When I touch those handlebars, I'm ready to go and do my thing, and that's what I'm good at. The only thing that comes to me is calm. Honest to guys, I've seen some people like getting ready to drop in and they're twitching, they're looking, and that guy's going down. But when there's a big crowd, you can't help but get carried away, and we got an event coming up in Montpellier in May, and it's like the crowd is a free event, so in France, south of France, just 30 degrees, and there's about 300,000 people watching you just screaming, so that's the hardest event to hold back with. But yeah, the excitement, obviously the nerves you get, but it's more the adrenaline that takes over. And to separate all those individually and to focus on what you're doing, that means you are a true athlete because you can block out everything and you're there to do a job. And once you've done that job, then you can release all the adrenaline and go scream your lungs off, do you know what I mean? But yeah, you've got to separate all that. People used to not bully me, but take the mick about me riding a little kid's bike, and that little bike, for example, has just come back from Hiroshima, Japan, and a lot of these people that took the mick out of me have probably never been anywhere.
So when we're considering competitiveness, we know that whether someone is competitive is related to the environments that they grow up in or the environments they find themselves in. So obviously a key influencer there might be your parents. When we think about the environments that are created, there can be environments where people measure their success relative to others. So was I better than my opponents? Did I win a competition? Or there's environments where it's about, did I improve? Did I demonstrate that I've got better or that I did a better performance than I did previously? And how you're rewarded for that or how people respond to you, whether they congratulate you for self-improvement or whether they congratulate you for beating others, will start to influence how you display competitiveness or the extent to which you value beating other people.
Townhill as itself has always had a bad reputation. Yes, maybe from years and years ago, which has just carried through. As it is this day and age, I've lived up here myself for years and years and years. I've never had any problems with anybody. Everything's good, you know, and it's just people associate Townhill with drug addicts, everything, alcoholics, fighters, everything. It's not. It's the same wherever you go. Whatever city you go into, whatever town you go into, whatever country you go to, you'll find the same problems. We try to get them people out of that, bring them in here, which does help a lot of people up in Townhill. So just around here now, we got our main boxing gym. This is our main gym. This is where everybody does their training and boxing. Rihanna, you got to move. Don't stand up straight. You've got 2 weeks. Come on. I said it's nerve-wracking at first. I said, you know, you think, are you good enough? Are you going to win? What's the opponent going to be like? He's going to be stronger than me. He's going to be better than me. But it's something that you've got to control your mind and work through in your own mind and believe that you are good enough and have the discipline in yourself and the belief in yourself that you can do it, that you can go in and win that fight, which is what I've tried to get every fighter to do.
Basically, we must be the cheapest club in Great Britain. It's 50 pence a night for the kids and £1 for the adults. Well, I don't think it's too dear for anybody, and we've kept it at that. We've not put the subs up since 1999, since we come here. Most of them are from up around this area. They got nothing. Most of them, I will say, right, if they didn't come boxing, they wouldn't see anywhere in Wales. Mum and Dad have got no money to take them here, no money to take them there. We put them in the minibus and off we go. Since I've been in charge of the club, we've had 324 Welsh champions, which I'm extremely proud of. I don't think anybody will ever touch it.
Swansea's known for it. It's Terry Matthews, Peter Curvis, Cliff Curvis, Ryan Curvis, well, Colin Jones, all the famous boxers and the bred from Swansea. The latest one now was Jay Harris, who boxed for a world title fight. Swansea's known for it. Somebody
will be here, then they'll tell their friends, and then they'll want to come up. So a lot of people, they've got a basic interest in it first. You know what I mean? So the parents have got sort of want them to come into this sport, you know, to help with the discipline, self-defense, behavioural problems. I say with the discipline of the boxing, calms them down, gives them something to release their anger and the tension and everything else that's going on. We get kids who've come up that have been bullied, so the parents think then put them into boxing, put them into some self-defense sport, which again I think is a good thing. You know, which teaches them then, which we teach them not to use it on the street. But if they got something, if somebody's trying to bully them, tell them put their hands up properly. Somebody's got to think twice. I think, oh, hang on a minute now. He knows a bit of boxing or something like that, and they're going to think twice about it.
And it's just boys?
No, I just joined 2 girls and I want to do. It upset me, because I think they should be in the outside. I don't think they should be boxing.
Well, what's your real opinion on it?
I don't think they should be boxing.
Why is that?
Because I don't agree with it. You're a pretty girl, would you like me punched on the nose?
If it's what I wanted to do.
Ah, rubbish. No, it would be damaged quite easy.
To be quite honest, I think that a lot of the girls out there now are a lot better than the men, to be quite honest. And I think it gives them, again, it's a good form of self-defense for them. In this day and age, they need it.
So we know when people are playing sport that they do it in lots of different environments, and we see a lot of individuals who want to engage in sport or physical activity outside. And the research is very consistent in this, that being in green spaces and blue spaces is really positive for your mental health.
Being outdoors for me it's really important. It's a big part of who I am, and running outdoors in nature I've always found it's been a way for me to reset. It's a way for me to reflect on some of my thoughts, but also to sort of deal with them in my own way. You know, and I think when I ran up Kilver Hill maybe back in August 2022. You know, my cat had died really suddenly, really upset by it. So I came to Kilvey Hill, I ran right up to the top, and I was pushing myself, and I was running in amongst all the trees and all the nature, you know, just letting out screams as I got, you know, higher and higher. Got to the top, let it all out, you know, like crying, did a little meditation to sort of just calm myself. And then that's one thing that running offers, but that's also one thing that nature offers as well, is that ability to step back, to look at our problems, to look at the stuff we've got going on, and deal with it in a way that's going to make us better for good, you know, and not just for that moment. So my name's Ryan Stevens. I'm a mindset and wellbeing coach from Swansea, and I run Wet Bandits as a sea dipping community. So it encourages people to get in the sea as well as connect with others to promote positive physical and mental well-being. What I would say is I went to a public school, and you know, the typical sort of sports and things that were getting played, I had absolutely no interest in. You know, for somebody who loves running and loves being physically active, I never liked any of the sort of sports that I used to play. So when I was 19, I set up my first business. This crack started to show around 2 years in. Kind of led me on a bit of a dark road. I knew that things weren't going to work out with the business. And one of the choices I made from getting into a really low place mentally was to start selling drugs. Subsequently, that led me to get caught, and I ended up going to prison. So yeah, when you wake up and you're sitting in a prison cell and you sort of kind of come around and you go, oh, okay, I'm here. I would say the first few days is where the real shock happens, because you're waking up, and I think part of you kind of hopes that you're just dreaming or it was, you know, a nightmare. But then you sort of come around and you're like, oh no, I am actually sitting in a prison cell. And one of the only things you can do is exercise. So I think that's one of the main things that keeps you going in prison, is the ability to exercise, whether it's in a closed condition prison or an open prison, just getting out that anger, letting out that frustration, letting out all of the stuff that's going on up here, and sort of transmuting it into physical energy and then releasing it.
About 10 years ago, I was a heavy smoker. Liked to party quite a lot. I stopped smoking, and after several attempts, and basically wanted a focus. I won't lie, the first few months I literally was hanging off the back. But never at that time did I think, oh, I won't come back again, because the support that I had from everybody was, you know, was invaluable. Swansea Harriers was formed in 1962. It's an athletics club here in Swansea. It competes in track and field, cross country, fell running, road running.
Caters for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're fast, if you're slow, if you're starting out, if you've been running for many years. There's something in it for everybody. They push me on. We have a lovely set of friends in the running community as well, and it's just a laugh. It's just a real laugh. And actually, no matter what sort of level you are, there's always people there to really want you to do well.
That is always still there, whether or not you turn up to support your friends in an event. So you're the one that's having the coffee and the cake and not actually doing the running, which is always one of my favourites. Or whether or not it's your turn to take part of that event, or maybe it's just the case that actually you're going through a really difficult part of your life right now, and you just know that at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning there's going to be 300 people running Park Run, and you can go down and find someone to talk to. At 9 a.m. it's free, 5k, you can walk, jog, run, and it's your opportunity to be part of something every single week.
Even people who've never taken exercise come and just be out and see people, whether you're running or volunteering. I think the last 2 years were awful because you couldn't meet, and as much as the benefits of running, it's also the benefits of seeing people, of coming together as a community to help, and it's a lot cheaper than happy pills.
It's the first time I've done Swansea, and I found it really nice. It's a nice flat course, nice scenery obviously running alongside the beach here, and yeah, it's a really good, nice time. So we come down with all our friends. We've got a group that we run with, you Jack Runners, and yeah, if you go to park runs anywhere else, you can always feel like a part of the community there as well.
We have both run 5 kilometres together. As you can see, he's not tired, but he's still very excited. He's only a puppy, he's 10 months, so we do it quite slowly because he's not fully formed yet, but he loves it. He loves the people, the fresh air, just being out and about, really. So many benefits. I mean, aside from the obvious health benefit of being outside and running, I find that it gets my kids away from the screen, it gets them out into the fresh air, and just the people you meet. It's a real cliche to say that it's a community, but parkrun is just so much more than a run.
Running is amazing for mental health. It's physical health, and generally losing weight is usually the motivator for most people. But it is absolutely intrinsic to keeping mental and emotional well-being.
So when you're an athlete, whether you're a young athlete or an elite athlete performing on the international stage, confidence is really important. And one of the characteristics that is most consistent across elite athletes is that they have an unshakable self-belief, or they have a very consistent sense of confidence in their abilities. However, that doesn't mean that they don't encounter self-doubts, particularly if they're maybe running into a period of poor performances or a run of bad form, or where there's a lot of change and transition happening within their lives or within their sport. And in those instances, being able to kind of talk the talk and walk the walk, even if you're not quite feeling it, can be really important, because sport is a competition, and any sign of weakness can be exploited by opposition or by fans as a way of trying to help the other person to succeed.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky in a way, and people look at me quite funny when I say it. I was never first choice. I was never always in the team, so I was always fighting. So probably a lot of weeks I had a bit of a failure as in not getting picked. I know there were certain games that you come off and I'm the worst player in the world. You sat there going, how am I so bad? How am I a professional rugby player? I played so bad in that game. But then going back to before the game, was your process right? Did you make sure you did all your work? Were you across everything? Did you prepare well, as in did you eat well? Did you sleep well before the game? Were you mentally in a good place going to the game? And if you can answer all those things, yes, I was, you go, okay, it just didn't go my way in that game. Yeah, so I started about 5 years old, was really young. My cousin was playing, went up to watch him, absolutely fell in love with rugby. I think the first thing I seen was how stinking he got, and thought, oh, that looks fun. Everyone's got smiles on their faces, rolling around in the mud. I remember seeing everybody after the game still wanting to spend time with each other, and I was like, that's a nice community to be involved in. I also realised you get free sausage and chips after a game as well, so that was a big selling point for me as well. I obviously have games like playing my first European game over in Toulouse. That was amazing. Playing my first game for the Ospreys up in Exeter in Sandy Park. They were amazing. Just before I finished, to get to 150 games for the Ospreys was really nice. But there's so many good people involved with the Ospreys. I've been so lucky to spend time with those, and yeah, that definitely helps keeping you around, because we've obviously all got to be money focused, look after our family, but to enjoy where you go to work, to want to have conversations with people you spend a lot of time with, that's powerful and that's more meaningful than anything else. I remember being in my rugby career, like when I was plumbing as well, and I'd say to somebody, I know they're having a tough time, or like in rugby, somebody could have had a really bad injury, and I'd go in the physio room and say, oh, how are you, pal? And they go, yeah, good, you? I'm like, I know you're not, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to support you. I don't know how to have a deeper conversation about it. I don't know how to make somebody feel like they can speak to me, even though I'd really want to be there to speak to them about it. Doing an introduction to counselling course changed my life. We all know if we're going through something, we're building our story up in our head. Might be quite a small issue. All of a sudden, it's really significant. It's massive. It's taken over all our thoughts. So giving a space to speak, understanding them what is the actual issue, because is it the injury and they're scared about the physical implications of it? Is it the fact that they're scared of losing their identity from a rugby point of view? Is it the fact of point of view of it's the finances that they can't deal with? Is it the point of view of they haven't got anything else, so they're not sure what life after that looks like? So understanding that point of view, letting somebody explore that, not giving somebody the answer for that, but asking the questions, being sat there and actually saying to him, look, I understand you're like having struggles at the moment. Do you want to explain a little bit more about how you feel about it? You don't have mental health just when you're in a bad place. You have mental health when you're in a good place. You have mental health in those days in between. If you have a mental health problem, it doesn't mean that it's going to last. Like there's ways to work on these things. So that understanding, that education is where I want to go, and the fact that when I sit down to somebody and say, how are you? If they've got something going on, they're able to go. That's what it is.
So when we think about the sports that are made available to children particularly, we know that very traditionally we've had sports that have been associated with masculinity and consequently made available to boys. So things such as football and rugby would be traditionally the sports that boys would engage in, whilst on the other hand, sports such as netball might be made available to girls. However, as more and more individuals are exposed to a range of sports, they're being exposed to a broader range of environments, and we are starting to see a push back against this idea of what is okay for girls and what is okay for boys.
My raison d'etre, the whole point of being a member of Parliament for me is to empower women and girls to achieve in their lives, to pull down the barriers that are put in their way, to tell their brothers they can play for Wales as well, and to fight for the right to do that, as we are 51% of the population.
Hiya, I'm Tonya Antoniazzi. I'm a Member of Parliament for Gower. I used to play rugby for Wales. I've played rugby for years and I'm a big fan of the sport. To be honest with you, it's a difficult sport with the rules, with the contact, with all the different kind of nuances of playing with other people, other positions. But it's something, it's really interesting and it's fun to participate in. When I pulled on my boots and I played for Wales in 1996, I felt that in 25 years, the game hadn't really changed. While the game had been under the stewardship of the Welsh Rugby Union, you would have thought that more and greater advances would have been made for the women's game. Cultures within organisations, not just the Welsh Rugby Union, need to be challenged. And it's my responsibility now, all those years on, to challenge those organisations. And it is my intention to do that. I am an ambassador for West Swansea Hawks, and I think they do some great work. And there's a lot of motivation for girls to play up to under 18s. There are some regional sides as well, but a lot more investment needs to be made into the game and a lot more encouragement to get girls playing rugby is needed. And the will is there, the structure isn't. If you want to play for Wales, then you have to go and play your rugby outside of Wales, and that is what needs to change. So we need to have a setup in Wales where we have one, possibly two key teams with contracts for women and for young girls to aspire to be part of that team. The young people, the young girls that are playing in Gowerton and in Pontarddulais will have those opportunities to be able to play for the hub, for a region, and then play for Wales. The team that I play with, the Commons and Lords rugby team, it's cross-party. There are people from outside of politics who work for politicians or maybe work in Parliament that participate and play. So you get to meet more people, you get to raise money for good causes, and you get to just carry on experiencing the benefits of being part of a team.
You give some of the Tories a bit of a barge as well.
Yeah, they get a ribbon, yeah.
So, my name is Helen. I work for Ospreys in the Community. Ospreys in the Community is the official charity of Ospreys Rugby. And I deliver a couple of projects, but the main one being Sporting Memories. So Sporting Memories is a project targeting those over the age of 55 but living with issues such as dementia, depression, socially isolated who have early stages of memory loss, and their carers. And the aim is to engage people through the power of sport, talking about their sporting memories, games they might have been to, plays they might like watching, games they've played in. Follow the national sporting calendar, well, the national, local and international sporting calendar. We focus on things that are happening in the world at the moment. Then there's always 3 distinct parts of the session. We'll deliver reminiscence while we talk about the 6 nations as we have today. We'll play a game, and then there's always a physical activity. We're a health and wellbeing project, so the idea is we get people moving and playing all kinds of crazy games.
Well, my partner's got dementia, and he looks forward to it every week. It's a bit of social interaction with other people, really. And, you know, Helen and the team who have grown since we started are so nice to everybody and understand everybody. That's the reason I like coming. More for him and more for me, really, because it gives me an outlet as well. Well, there was only us 12 at the beginning, and our partners had dementia. Unfortunately, we're only down to 4 of us now. At home, there's only me and him, and he needs me all the time. He can shower and do everything like that, but it's almost like I'm his security blanket. He needs me there all the time. So for him to come here, it breaks that mould a bit. He doesn't say a lot, but he enjoys the games. Like she said, come and do the games, and he was saying, come on, let's do the games. So he enjoys it. It's enjoyment to him.
Well, this is my 3rd time, because I only recently lost my wife. At one time, I was football going mad. I done refereeing for the schools in the morning. I do this, the Swansea Senior League in the afternoon. I done a few Welsh League things. I always ran my own club, Kilvey Athletic it was, and a few of the players like Speedy and most of them, that was in my club, and we took them to the Swans, and they eventually become Welsh internationals. They were local boys, and it was there.
So I love the additional impact it has away from the 2 hours here. It's increased people's interest in sport. We're all really passionate about it when we deliver it, and I feel like I've increased their enthusiasm for it. Some lovely stories have come out of it. We've got a former international rugby referee who comes along. We've got players who've played locally, internationally. Some who've played obscure sports, because it's not solely a rugby project. It's a sport across the region project, and it's just an amazing thing to be involved in. All of a sudden, everyone becomes the most competitive people I've ever met. So we're playing curling this morning. There are never any prizes, but they have to win. And quite often husbands and wives will go on different teams, and there's like the bragging rights for the rest of the week. They come back again. I beat you last week. Okay, well, I'm going to beat you today. It makes me smile to think how we bring this out in people, whereas they wouldn't have the opportunity to play these games. A lot of these games are made up games where they're completely inclusive, regardless of anyone's level of ability. Everybody can play if they want to, but they love it.
We are quite competitive. Blue and red, we're very competitive. So you may hear a lot of cheering.
We're sitting here in the archive room at Swansea RFC in St Helens, a very famous old ground. I quickly realised that it was more than just a collection of historical items. Everything here tells a story, and the stories relate to the people around here. The ground's first claim to fame is that the very first international played on Welsh soil was played here in December 1882 against England. St Helens used to hold a capacity of about 55,000, which is hard to believe now, but if you're looking at old Pathé News footage and other footage, that you can actually see enormous crowds. The fact that sport has been such a such an important factor in Swansea really relates back to the industrialisation of the town. At one point, I believe 95% of the world's copper emanated from this part of the world, from Swansea itself. And so you can imagine hundreds and hundreds of chimneys, sport being obviously the only real outlet for these strong but poor men. Amongst the early heroes working in the tin plate works and the copper plate works, and then on Saturday playing here at St Helens, they completely changed into a different personality, and names that people would not now perhaps know, but famous in their day, were the James brothers, David and Evan. The James brothers played for Wales in the early 1890s, but they were lured north for money, more money than they could possibly earn in St Thomas. Having been reinstated, the James brothers then went north again in 1899, 2 weeks after they masterminded the defeat of England by 26 points to 3 here in January 1899. Unfortunately, this tale does not have a happy ending, as one of them died of consumption. Obviously, this is to do with the work that he was undertaking back down in Swansea. But they were actually just national heroes in Wales. Between the wars, the tours were restricted because we had, of course, the Great Depression. But by 1945, Swansea were on the road again. And by 1954, they, on a very adventurous tour, were undertaken to Romania. They were the first British side to tour behind the Iron Curtain in August 1954. This led to a Romanian tour coming over to the UK in the following season. Swansea was one of the teams they played, and actually a player from the Romanian 15 defected to the UK after the match. Matty Davis, who was the secretary of the Swansea club at the time, was given orders by MI5 to take this player to the Mumbles, buy him an ice cream, and then 2 men would come along, one either side of him, and they'd walk him away, and Matty said he never heard of him again. The Romanian national 15 was really made up from players from the army, so possibly he was a technician, and it was worthwhile the British government having him over here. Or it may have just been that he said, for heaven's sake, get me out. Swansea, having beaten the All Blacks in '35 and played the Springboks at least 3 times by then, and beaten them in 1912, the Springboks returned again in 1969. Of course, the political situation was very different then, and there was great pressure for the tour not to go ahead. Various campaigns followed the tourists all around, and by the time they got to Swansea there was an organised demonstration which was determined to actually stop the game. South Africa actually won the game, but that was the last time that South Africa toured until 1994, being the significant time, of course, because Nelson Mandela had been released, become president, and South Africa were now welcomed back to the rugby family. Of course, cricket's been played at St Helens since 1875, and it was actually the cricket club that guaranteed the ground. So cricket and rugby were played both on the same ground, on the same spot in fact. I've actually found a ball today alongside the side of the pitch here, and who knows, it may be the ball that was lost when Gary Sobers hit his 6 sixes in 1968.
And he's done it! And my goodness, it's gone way down to Swansea.
Several people have claimed to have the ball, and I guess more than a couple have been auctioned over the years. So we produced over 150 players that have gone on to play for the Ospreys, to play for Wales, and to play for the British and Irish Lions, and we're still doing it now. Household names that are currently playing: Dan Biggar, Alan Wynne-Jones. There's lots of them that all started at Swansea. Many of the players have also gone on to national honours, including the captain until very recently, Shuan Lillicrap. Football has gradually made inroads into the rugby crowd. You could say that both went hand in hand for some time, but and both are tribal as well. But that tribalism is gradually disappearing, I think, from the rugby world, but it's still very much in evidence in the football world. If you go to a match at the Swansea.com stadium and you watch a football match, they will have an entirely different audience, not just because of the noise, but because of the absolute partisanship. One of the things about rugby is, although we support our team, we all like to watch good rugby. Whether people all like to watch good football is debatable, but certainly crowd-wise, they're in a healthier state in Swansea today than the rugby is.
We're here at the Vetch Field. This is the old entrance to the what was called the new stand, which was the East Terrace. Behind us is the Sandfields area of Swansea, which when the Industrial Revolution came along, this tended to be where people were housed near the docks, near the works. In 1912, when Swansea Town Football Club was first convened, the Vetch became the place where they played. So 61 years after the first game with the Swans in 1912, I came here for my first game. It was against Lincoln City. The Swans went 3-0 and I saw my first hero, Alan Curtis, score one of the goals. And the thing about coming here then was the Swans were at the bit of a trough. So my first game, there were only 1,800 people here. So I count myself as super lucky that I grew up to understand what it was like for the club to struggle. And then through the glory years really of John Toshak. And even now, just being here today, and there's nothing left really apart from bits of grass and stuff. I still get chills when I come here because my childhood memories are so focused on this ground. And yeah, I still come here whenever I can. I come to Swansea, park by the prison and always walk through the Vetch before I do anything else. So it's a magical place for me. So basically this was where the East Terrace was, which became the new stand in the 1980s. And we're more or less, I'm just trying to get my bearings, just here, I would say, is where you'd think it'd be a football-related story, but Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend, The Who, Keith Moon would have been drumming just behind, and they played 3 football grounds in the mid-70s. Charlton in London, the Valley, they played in Glasgow, and for some reason they played at the Vetch. They were rated at the time as the loudest rock band in the world, so I don't know what all the neighbours thought. But even more bizarrely, if it can get more bizarre, standing on this exact spot again was Stevie Wonder in 1984. I suppose it's quite a natural link when you think about it, because sport brings together thousands of people. You're focusing on an event, entertainment, which is the pitch, the 22 players and the cut and thrust of sport. But I guess when you think about a rock concert and you've got, as I said, someone like Stevie Wonder or The Who, it's the same thing really. It brings something out of you, a passion that probably lies dormant the rest of the week. And then you go to the concert or you go to the sports match, it brings out this passion within you, the joy of being there. And ultimately they're the same thing. You know, it's 10 or 20,000 people all focusing on the entertainment, just one is singing and one is playing. The changes obviously that came in football in the 80s and 90s were basically all to do with hooliganism. I remember being at the Vetch where if it was a full house and the Swans scored or attacked, you'd be swept along. A friend of mine, I remember him telling me his shoes were pulled off his feet where the crowd went and he had to try and find his shoes after the game. And that all changed with obviously the Hillsborough disaster and Heysel with Liverpool. And the Taylor report came in that basically said we can't afford any longer for anyone to go to a football match and not come home. And the whole network, I suppose, of football in Great Britain changed. And that's when we had all-seater stadiums. And the Vetch was never going to be fit for purpose for that. You were never, ever going to put seats in the North Bank. And when the decision came, I think the decision was made around 2003, but they left here in 2005 to go over to what became the Liberty Stadium, Swansea.com now. And players that came through then, like Lee Trundle. Lee was like a magician, and I've never, in all my years watching football with the Swans, I've never known the fans take to one player as much as Lee.
Well, I think the same. Every player that signs for Swansea always gets took to the Mumbles. It was a nice summer's day as well, so it was Kev Reeves, it was the assistant manager. He picked me up from Liverpool, brought me down, so he took me down to Verdi's in Mumbles. We had a little pasta, little ice cream, and then we went back down to the Vetch then, and just had a little look around the stadium. It was my manager who signed me for Wrexham, Brian Flynn. He was the manager of Swansea at the time. And I'd just been promoted to the league above with Wrexham as well. So when I come to Swansea, I dropped down a division to come back and play for Brian. If it wasn't for Brian Flynn, I would never have come to Swansea. You know, I had teams from higher divisions wanting to take me, but I knew that Brian got me as a manager and knew that he'd let me go out and express myself, and I think that's a big part of my game. I've got to have a manager who gives me that license to go out, because if I don't, well, I've had it at other clubs and you know, it hasn't worked for me. So I said, I'll just sign a year contract. Let's see how I get on with me being away from home, and we'll see how it goes then. And within 3 months of signing that, I'd signed a 2-year extension to stay here. So it was pretty clear that it was a place that I wanted to be. With Swansea, you know, I'm living in the city, I'm going into the town centre, I'm going into the shops, and everyone's wanting to stop and speak to you about the football and telling you how important the football club is. You know, the year before, we only managed to stay in the Football League, so I think that gave even the fans all a wake up as well. And, you know, you could see that they loved the football. And I think once you've only got one team in your city, it becomes even more passionate as well. And I just got involved with that. Obviously, it helps that I started off really well on the pitch as well, you know, scoring goals, playing well, you know, become a fan's favourite straight away. So, you know, everything just felt right, and, you know, that was a place where I wanted to stay. I think because before I come, I think the last person to score 20 goals was in 1981, which was Bob Latchford. And, you know, every fan loves a goal scorer. So then when I've come in my first season, got 20, and then 20 every season after that, I think it just become where I like the fans and people relying on me. I think that helps spur me on.
When we think about people like fans, it might be actually a recognition that, again, they've invested their time and their effort, and that they've really been there with you, and that they've been on a journey with you through maybe your career, and you want to show them that you are working hard and that you're responding to what they need. But it's also around recognizing that fans are a part of the team often, and when you're an athlete, especially at the highest levels, you know, you identify with those fans and you identify with your teammates, and you really are all kind of pulling together.
What I would say as well from the fans, they never ever put me under any pressure. If I'd do a trick and it wouldn't come off, or if I've have a shot and it'd go over the bar, they'd still clap and sing me name. So I think that's a massive part of where I didn't really feel any pressure, because I knew whatever I'd done, them fans would still be behind me, and that was probably the biggest part of my game, which made me go out and perform the way I did for them. Because people see football as the release. They've had a hard time in work, they might be having a hard time in the house, they can come here and shout what they want. Well, not what you want, but you can shout and let it all out. So I understand that from a fan's point of view, but it's what you're shouting and what you're saying as well. So, you know, especially on social media as well, I think people can think that they can just say what they want. And even, you know, you hear the old shout of, if they're shouting stuff and say, oh, we pay your wages. Well, does that mean that you can just talk to someone the way you want to? If someone come into anyone else's work and started shouting stuff at them and said, oh, well, I pay your wages, would that be okay? Would you go, oh all right? But once you love your football club and you're so passionate about it, I think it's a hard one to take out here, because even me now, you know, being involved at the club, I'm still a Swansea City fan. When I still watch games, I still get frustrated. I'll still, you know, I'll go through the emotions what the fans go through as well. So I understand where they're coming from.
So football is your comfort zone?
Yeah, 100%, and that's why I still play now. You know, as I said before, I'll play with Ammanford in the Welsh League. I'll play with Llanelli in the over 40s, over 45s, and that's where I enjoy myself. That's my release, to go out and play football. And once I'm out there, you know, even though I'm probably moaning a little bit when I'm out there, I am still enjoying my football. And, you know, it's my favourite part of the week to be out on the football pitch playing. Feels a lot easier in the over 45s playing than it does in the Welsh League, but still enjoyable, you know, because I think, you know, with the Welsh League, with Ammanford, you know, it's a lot more competitive. I think when you go into the 40s and 45s, you still enjoy your football, but it's a social as well for the lads to get out and meet up. And I think once you've played football and been in the dressing room and, you know, had that camaraderie with each other and the joking, and that's probably a part that everyone would miss. So I think for me as well, that's why I love still being involved in football, because that's a massive part. Oh.
Oh, Neil!
Close one.
When individuals participate in sport, they often get access to a whole range of benefits, whether that is financial, if they're performing at the very highest level, or social, they develop great friends and a great sense of community, or personal, they develop skills that help them to succeed in other areas of their life. And because of all of those different benefits that individuals obtain when they participate in sport, it's not uncommon for them to go back and volunteer within that sector. And actually the whole model of sport is heavily reliant on volunteers, and without them, you know, youth sport particularly just wouldn't exist in the way that it really does currently.
My name's Tim Dalton. I'm an Irene's dad, who you've just met. I'm here to support my son and the team playing football.
Do you come here like...
Yeah, every week. Do I come here often? I haven't been asked that for a while.
Nice things I get from playing. It's just you know, a good feeling when you run around the pitch, because it's sort of like, you know, a feeling of freedom, really. So it's I really that's what I like about football.
Do you think it's important for Clydach as a whole, like to have this facility?
Definitely. I think it brings the community together, as well as the rugby as well, and the cricket and all the sports within the village. It brings the children together, it brings the parents together. Sometimes we have a little drink as well, which is always nice. You know, the kids have an end of season do, and they have, you know, they pop in their crisps, and they have their awards and player of the year and stuff like that. So yeah, it just brings everybody together, and as you can see, it's a great atmosphere.
Yeah, and it's like cool to be able to just walk from the house to come down here, because obviously it's only down the road.
And just go for a kickabout with our friends if you want to.
Yeah,
women should have the same rights as men to play football. Like, women can love it as much as men. Women can be better than men sometimes. So, yeah, women should be able to play equally and not have to like suffer while playing.
It teaches them, obviously, working as a team. There are individual skills that they have to practice themselves. So I think it's a good balance that they have to take instruction from adults, which is sometimes a challenge, as you can imagine. But yeah, it teaches them, you know, some basic life skills that they have to listen, they have to work as a team, and they have to coordinate with the other players to get the result they want. So yeah.
Well, playing for the boys team makes us more competitive, because when we play for the girls, there's not that much competition. But when you're playing for the boys, they're all like shouting, getting rough and stuff. I feel like we get our competition from the boys, and then we know how to play from the boys team. So yeah.
And then we bring it on to the girls team then, and then
show
make
people
everyone
how
else.
to play.
Yeah.
And is it important to win?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's nice to win, but obviously you've got to lose some. That's what makes you like a better person on the inside.
Don't know where or when, but all I know is I can't wait to.
So I played football from when you were like 5, you know, played for different teams, and that was part of the motivation for us. Was there weren't that many teams playing kids football when I was a kid, and you ended up having to go and play in neighbouring villages and what have you. But luckily then, as I played for the local teams, and so as my journey went on, I had kids, and I wanted my kids to play for my team in my village. So it's been, you know, part of what I do is because somebody did it for me when I was a kid. Somebody gave up their time. So it's, you know, that's the thing for me, is what can we give back to them so that it was a better experience than perhaps when we were growing up. So we're in Coedwillan Park in Clydach. So we're at the far end of Swansea. Even though we're in the constituency we're in is Gower. We're a long way from Gower, I can tell you that. It has areas, leafy areas around the park like this. And it has some areas where, you know, of multiple areas of deprivation, as they like to call it, for different reasons. And that is a big part of where those people come together. And it's one of the few places where they do then, therefore, socially come together, is when they come to a football club. Yeah. So it was one of the main reasons we merged the teams together, because girls were going to play further afield, and the community needed girls' football in order to make the club diverse. We need a strong, diverse community. When it's all just the lads, it's a very different football club to now that there's girls there. So we had about one team of girls, about under 8 or something like that, between us. And in the last 2 years, we've managed to recruit, and there's now about 100 girls playing across all of the teams. You know, we get the right balance of boys and girls who want to improve and be better, and we push them as hard as we can to be better, but you get to learn some just want to be here because they want to play with their friends, and you have to have that balance and get that right.
Girls team is on top now, rocking the football. Played football since I was like 5 years old, and I've always enjoyed it. It's just one of my favourite sports. When did you start?
Like just by COVID, I think it was, because my dad saw something on Facebook or something, and he was like, "Do you want to join?" And so I did.
The main thing is that you love the game. So you love the game, and you know, football's always been one of those things. Even throughout your career, you might have only won 3 or 4 things in your entire career, but you remember those times and those teams, and they're great memories that everyone's got. But if you don't have, you know, you had a lot more losses, a lot more defeats, a lot more down times, but you remember the highs, and then, you know, you realise that actually that's what you're trying to give to these other kids then, is the moment to have those positive parts of the game that will far outweigh and will live them for a long time.
Bike Field to Wales is an inclusive cycling charity, so we're here to get anybody on a bike, maybe somebody's got disabilities or doesn't know how to ride, wants to become more confident at riding bikes. So the charity has been going 16 years. It was set up by our founder, who was inspired to set the charity up because one of her friends had an accident and couldn't ride a bike anymore, and she had a disability, and she thought it'd be really good to help people to get back on their bikes in that situation. So that's how the charity was formed. So we haven't got your standard 2-wheel bikes here. We've got all sorts. We've got hand cycles, go-karts, low riders, KMXs, 3-wheelers. So a lot of it's about seeing what people's abilities are, coming down, trying the different bikes, adapting the bikes to suit their needs. The freedom you feel getting on a bike, feeling the wind in your hair, it makes you feel happy. You know, bikes are about, you know, health and well-being. It makes, you know, it brings all the endorphins up. You know, I ride into work a lot of the time, and a lot of my volunteers and colleagues do. And the difference how it means to us when we arrive not driving in a car is we feel, you know, happy to start the day. It's just, I don't know, it's just such a freedom and an enjoyment, and yeah, it's great for the endorphins.
I always cycle along sort of Swansea Bay to work. I feel so blessed in terms of to be able to do it.
This morning, my journey here, you know, coming across the bay, looking at the sea, I'm always saying, "Good morning, beautiful." I feel great coming in. Then I'm coming up in the woods, you know, coming and cycling there. It's my 2 favourite places. If I'd driven in, completely different, you know. Lots of my clients that come down here, they are autistic. So lots of them come into me and they don't like new environments. So it takes a while for them to settle. After a number of weeks, they start making their own decisions, deciding what bike they may want to go on, and they start engaging then with the person that may be looking after them. There's a lot of things about, there's a lot of like life skills, confidence, motor skills. I get a lot out of this job. I absolutely love this job. I love people, and I like seeing the changes that we can make. I like people coming in here, and I can see the lacking of confidence or just, you know, life skills or like socializing. I love helping people, and you really see the difference coming here. It gives me a lot of energy for my life. And you know, making people's, you know, dreams come true. So seeing the difference it's making to them, and they take that confidence in other parts of their lives then. So yeah, I really love it.
Hello again. Off we go with the Surfline Early Morning Report, here on location at Llangenneth Beach Gower. This is Pete Jones, your In the Tube Surf Report on location. At 8 a.m. this morning, the waves are looking fantastic. 4 foot, offshore wind, perfect bows. Get down as soon as you can. Bye for now. Llangennith is west facing and on the Gower. If there are no waves here, there's no waves anywhere, so it picks up as well. You've got space. I think if there's 100 people in the middle of the bay, you could walk half a mile and you're on your own. What surfing does, I realise, because I'm old, it keeps you young from the neck up. From the neck down, you might get a bit old, but from the neck up, it keeps you young, because I'm lucky enough to do a job like this. Everybody's happy that comes in. You get old people, young people, and that's rather lovely to do that. Surfing is, for me, will always be a lifestyle. It won't be a sport, not really. So I rather like just wandering around in the open, put a wetsuit on, go in the water, and then, you know, that's what I love about it, freedom. The beach is more than just waves, it's space, wind, clouds, the mood of nature gets over you, which is really, for me, is fantastic to be able to do it. For me, surfing means more than being cool. It was a deep spiritual thing. I remember opening a surfer magazine and seeing these waves in California, in Hawaii, in Australia, South Africa. And I thought, gosh, and there was a British team then. And I thought, God, and it's free, right? So I thought, oh, if I get in the British team, I'll be able to go free to wherever. So I thought, I'm going to compete. The Welsh down here in 1972, and I wasn't favourite to win. When I competed, I changed into quite a fired-up little guy, little man syndrome, and I won it. So I was the first Welshman to get in the British team in 1972, you know, just stoked. You know, your ego then is massaged. You know, when you win things, I'm old, I laugh at it because winning is something to do with young ego. World contest in San Diego, 1972. I went there. Hawaii was 76, and then I went to South Africa, 78. 1980, the World contest was in France, and then 82, I was in Australia for that, and then I retired after that. Oh, I feel. Anyway, Carwyn came along, and he was always talented. You know, he was young, he's got a lot, he's another generation down from me, but I thought, God, he's good, you know, he's good. And he was always wild.
For the past 4 years, Carwyn Williams from Mumbles, Wales has been the European pro surfing champion, and he's the only person born and raised in Europe to have done well on the ASP Tour. A regular party animal and exercise addict, Carwyn puts in 4 to 5 hours a day riding waves. For Carwyn, surfing is his life. All his friends have come from it, and it's made him internationally well known and respected, something his mother is very proud of.
When a wave breaks, it gives off negative ions, so they go over your body, over your body, you get a nice feeling. This guy, Bruce, his name, he said, in fact, he said, 100 waves go over your body, they give you this lovely feeling. It's the same as having an orgasm. That's why you get hooked on it. It is an addiction, and it's lucky enough to be addicted to something that's good for you. If I'd been an addicted drinker, I'd be dead by now.
Catching your first wave, that generally feels like flying on water. It's just this buzz you get and you feel like so hooked. I think it's really hard work, and like it's a definitely high effort and low reward. Like it's a lot of like thrashing around, like grappling with a board, like a bit of foam or a bit of fiberglass in the sea, like all these different like elements, and then like all these things suddenly come together, and you're like, whether you're like riding your first whitewater wave, got your first green wave, like, you know, like out in a beautiful place, like that feeling of like you and your board working together to like harness the power and energy of this wave to like move is like phenomenal. And like I think that's the thing that people get hooked to, and like once you've done it once, you are like just desperate to do it again and again and again, because you just want that feeling again. It's like crack, but healthy crack.
So today we're here at Caswell Bay. It's our first surf meet back after winter. So I just moved to the area in like August 2021. I didn't know anyone here and I really wanted to surf more. So I tried to reach out to a couple of other women and it kind of didn't really come to anything, like just on Instagram. And then one day I was surfing at Llangennith and I was having a pretty miserable time. And then I actually met this woman called Joy, which felt very serendipitous, and she's actually here today. She's now one of the members, and yeah, we ended up surfing together in the white water, and it was just really wonderful. And yeah, from then on, I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing to connect with more women? And we really thought it was going to be this casual thing of just meeting up to surf together. And what we didn't anticipate was it becoming this absolute explosion and this huge kind of movement of drawing women together, and not only from the Gower, but we've attracted women from Porthcawl, Bristol, even further beyond. We had someone drop in from Edinburgh. This kind of casual thing that we wanted to set up has actually become now an official society and a club, and we're rolling out a membership, and we're becoming members of the Welsh Surf Federation.
I don't know, there's just something about being in the sea. You can you switch off. You can forget about everything else. I'm sure there's plenty of other sports, but there's just something about being in the water, especially, you know, if you catch a sunset, or it's just being out in nature and connected to the ocean. There's something so beautiful and helps you relax and forget about all your worries, I think, yeah. Yeah, I did gymnastics growing up, and then I've also done horse riding. They're all quite, I guess they're all quite they're not team sports, they're all quite, I guess, selfish sports. Surfing is a very selfish sport, but that's why it's so nice to have a community that brings you together, and you know, you don't get too in your head about things.
Like Evie said beforehand, it can be quite a lot of, it's a lot of effort. Like you have to read the forecast, make sure you're safe in the right place, go there, hope it's what you think it's going to be. You've got to get kitted up in your wetsuit, you've got to get out there, then you've got to paddle out back, which is going to be a bit of effort. And you're like, right, okay, all of this, now please let me catch a wave.
To be good at it though, you have to go in 3 times a week for 2 years, and then you might get okay at it. And olives. Eat lots of olives. How about that? How about that? Try to think. You wait till you get to my age.
So after the last chat that we had, this is no longer a building site, and now it's a fully functioning skate park. It opened, I'd say about 5-6 weeks ago, and the response has been absolutely phenomenal. We've had, as far as I'm aware, no complaints. I've talked to some of the councillors, no complaints about anything to date. Lots of passers-by stopping, chatting, asking what's happening, just marvelling at it.
I've got to say, like when I came down for the opening weekend, I felt like I've never skated in my life, and I felt emotional. I was like, it's so chuffed for everyone.
No.
This is such a great vibe, isn't it?
What this has really shown, I mean, Swansea's got a really rich heritage of skateboarding, but there's a real fallow period in terms of facilities that are available. The tie-in with the Gower, the surf communities, the skate community in South Wales as well. What this has done, it's given us a modern facility alongside all the more established sports like rugby, football, things like that. So a new generation, and some of the older generation as well, can find their passion. And it's really about helping people find their passion, get involved, getting out there and having fun.
It's big, and it doesn't feel like it'd be here.
It seems like it'd be somewhere else.
Well, it's got like a really nice atmosphere and it's quite easy to make friends here. And in summer it'll probably be like California, to go in the sea after a quick ride. So I met these two kids at the skate park and they're kind of annoying sometimes, especially this one. And yeah.
It's just a lovely atmosphere. Like when it's a dry day, you can like come out with your mates, and then it's just lovely to see.
Oh, it's amazing. It's about time, really. We've been dying for something. Well, I'm 33 now, so we haven't actually had a real facility in Swansea like this, of this sort of calibre, for about, well, since I've started. Like, a lot of people realised it was just a select few of millions who were trying to stop something happening for the community, and I think a lot of people, even whether they skate or not, sided with us because they thought it was a bit ridiculous for some one person to have their say over the majority of people who did want it in the first place. So he shot himself in the foot with that. I can't thank him enough for doing it. But
I moved here about 12 years ago, and I came to the mini ramp that was here on this site, and the first people I met 2 days after moving here was Jason and Tomsk, and friends for life sort of thing. So skateboarding is a lot more than just skateboarding. It's the art that goes with it, the people you meet, a lot of travelling in my case, or everyone's case. Yeah, it's took me around the world. You can see by the age range of everyone that's here and the parents and families that are here with their children. It's kind of giving people an introduction to the sports that you can do in a skate park. But also, yeah, it's growing a community that's already there and starting a new one, because some of these people here are like 5, 6 years old and they've never even known a place like this. And to see people older than their parents still doing it, it's kind of, the community's there already. This just helps it along.
Well, it's just a great thing for the community. Swansea obviously haven't had a new skate park outside, and it just brings everyone together. So, and just more things to skate with the ball, so it's just going to be good for learning more tricks, having more opportunities. So I work in Exist Skate Park, which is the indoor park in Swansea. We put different things on, like we have ADHD groups, disability groups, so it's a really cool place to get everyone involved and bring everyone into skating. Well, it's crazy because when I started skating 8 years ago, there wasn't many girls, it was few and far between, but those girls that were skating I looked up to so much, kind of pushed me to try harder, because I was like, oh, they can do it, so can I. But now, in the past couple of years, it's exploded. Any girl skate event you go to is packed, and even the other day down Exist there was a girl session, and it was nice to see the park just full out with girls, and it's a good community, and I think the more younger girls now have that community, then they're just learning more and progressing more, and it's cool to see. It's amazing. But yeah, I've always loved it, and even if I was a minority, it's just a cool thing to do, and yeah, it's nice to see more girls doing it now.
I'm Pam Erasmus, I'm a Mumbles community councillor. It started for us about 5 years ago when somebody in the community said we need a skate park, so we started researching schools and all my old friends in the local community centre, and one lady who was 85 said give them something to do and somewhere to go, and that really, right, we're off. And it's taken us 5 years, and this still scares me completely just standing here. Yes, so without the community we wouldn't have this. People like Thompson wouldn't have it without him. And whenever we were flagging, they just see you in the street and say, come on, you can do this, keep going. And whenever we thought, what's going to happen next, they said, no, we're behind you. And they just kept us going.
What's been the major challenges that you faced along the way?
I don't think I'm allowed to name names, am I? So we've just had to keep the faith, really, haven't we, really? I just think it's a joy. It is. He wants to get me on the skateboard.
We will.
Wait. We will. I'm bigger than he is.
I'll have a go if you have a go.
Don't say things like that, don't encourage him.
We've been trying to get a concrete skate park for about 40 years. So it's been a long road, and then only in the recent years, as I say, when Mumbles Community Council decided that they wanted to build a concrete facility here, I got chosen to help the council And my role really was to just translate skateboarding speak into council speak. So that was my role from the start. You can see now, just with all the youngsters, you know, we knew it was going to be successful, but we've been taken back by just how well used the facility has been from dawn until dusk every day. Swansea caters well for recreational sports, all other sports, and we've got the Gower with all the surfing and the water sports. So this was kind of the missing piece, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's just filled that gap now, and it bridges, the wheeled sports with the water sports that was so popular on the Gower Peninsula.
Yeah, the first week it's just unreal. We're still almost in disbelief that it's here. Everything that's gone on, the whole story behind it, the whole palaver. I think we were in the Ostream Centre 5+ years ago. This a memory popped up on Facebook. Trying to go and see the plans and stuff, and it still doesn't seem real. It's amazing.
Everyone who signed the petition, everyone who offered help, everyone who shouted down the naysayers online when they were getting a little bit out of hand. It's a real community achievement.
My hope for sport going forward is that we see more people enjoying participating in whichever form and whichever ways that they want, that it's accessible to all, that we have a recognition that by participating in sport, people are having an opportunity to learn a lot of different skills and have a lot of different experiences which are positive to their life, and to recognize that participating in sport, even if you don't have a desire to become an elite athlete, is a worthwhile pursuit, and we really should be able to make it an activity that everyone, if they so wish, can participate in.
We have a passion, it's part of our culture.
It just fills me with life. It's nice to help people.
It's sort of like, a feeling of freedom, really.
Catching your first wave, generally feels like flying on water.
That bike saved me from a lot of stuff.
You might have only won 3 or 4 things in your entire career, but you remember those times and those teams, and they're great memories that everyone's got.
So skateboarding is a lot more than just skateboarding. It's the art that goes with it, the people you meet.
It feels good to know that I've put a lot of effort in, and overcome.
It was probably my first real passion. I absolutely found a sense of belonging.
I absolutely fell in love with rugby. I've never fallen out of love with it since.
There's a bug inside you then, it just keeps you going. It's good to see them winning and getting something back out of it.
Very deep, soulful thing. It's a church, really.
All we needed was a ball, playing with freedom, and that's where you find your enjoyment.
We're all the same. We all need one another.
Yeah, being on the North Bank with your mates, the memory's just still very strong and magical, really.
I've always loved the roar of the crowd. It's in our blood.